This is a story of Angie Marie Housman's abduction, torture, and murder. Angie was born February 18th, 1984 to Diane Housman Bone and Angelo DeAndre. The nightmare unfolded back in the autumn of 1993 on Thursday, November 18th, around 3 p.m. The abduction occurred just blocks from my office at the time. I, like so many in our area, have never forgotten Angie and are anxious to see justice for this sweet child. It remains the oldest unsolved murder in the Missouri's major case squad history. It's a heartbreaking story of a precious and innocent young life taken by an unknown monster who may still walk among us. Angie Marie Housman is best remembered as an exuberant, sweet, and bubbly little 9-year-old girl with smiling eyes, soft, wavy golden brown hair, and dreams of one day becoming a nurse's aide. She vanished after happily climbing off of her school bus just 100 feet from the safety of her own front door. Now, 25 years later, her killer still remains free and unaccountable for some of the cruelest and unspeakable acts committed by one human being against another. Angie lived with her mother, Diane Housman Bone, and stepfather, Ron Bone, in St. Anne, a quiet, working-class suburb of St. Louis, Missouri, in the 3500 block of Wright Avenue. Angie was a fourth grader at Booter Elementary School on Baltimore Avenue, located just a few miles from home. Her school bus would pass my office on St. Charles Rock Road and turn at the corner. Angie lived a few blocks down on Wright Avenue in a modest brick duplex. Everyone that encountered her described her as an extremely friendly, loving, and kind little girl, always wearing her beautiful smile. At the time, some said she seemed overly eager to make friends with other children, making her demise all the sadder. She was known to greet others with, "Hi, my name is Angie, are you my friend?" She was much more trusting than the average 9-year-old. The day prior to her abduction, she told her teacher she was going on a trip to visit the countryside with a relative, alluding to the fact that Angie may have gone willingly with her abductor, unaware of the horror that awaited her. He may have been a stranger that approached her, offering her friendship, or possibly a known friend or relative. Unfortunately, Angie's teacher never pressed her for details. On the day Angie vanished, one particular neighbor, who always looks outside her living room window awaiting her own child to come home inside, was busy with housework at the time. And another neighbor, who often stood outside on the front porch until her kids made it home safely, was tending to her ill father. If this was any other day, it is very possible that an adult would have witnessed Angie's abduction. It typically took Angie 5 minutes to get from the bus stop to her home within walking distance. Sometimes it would be shorter if she ran home, as many kids do after getting off the bus, or maybe just a little bit longer if she stopped to play with other kids who lived in her neighborhood. Approximately 30 minutes passed by and her family became concerned. Being absent this long was very uncharacteristic of Angie, despite her extroverted personality. Angie's parents reported her missing, and the search began immediately, and panic seeped in and settled deeply as minutes turned to hours and then days. The police were adamantly working day and night to find answers, tracking down any leads that came to them, but nothing turned up. Local news stations in St. Louis covered her abduction with video clips of the major case squad, tactical law enforcement, and the FBI all searching for Angie, to no avail. Many children who normally walk to school and bus stops alone were now being escorted by parents. News outlets were warning parents to keep their children in eyesight as there was a killer loose. A couple of weeks later, on December 1st, another little girl, 11-year-old Cassidy Center, vanished just miles away in a neighboring North County, St. Louis suburb, shaking the entire city with fear. Parents were buying personal security alarms for their kids in hopes of preventing their child from becoming the next victim, as many speculated that these cases were related. Unfortunately, the security device did not help save Cassidy Center's life, as hers was found in a yard activated. Cassidy's murder was unrelated, but this was not to be discovered until months later. 9 days later, at 11:15 a.m., on a bitterly cold Thanksgiving weekend morning with light snow falling, 2 hunters discovered Angie's body, naked with her hair and cheeks encased in ice, tied to a tree in Bush Wildlife Conservation Area, just west of Miller Road near Highway 94 and just south of U.S. Highway 40, 26 miles away and roughly a 30-minute drive from her home in St. Anne. August A. Bush Memorial Conservation Area is a 6,987-acre conservation area that is owned and managed by the Missouri Department of Conservation. Sadly, Angie had died from exposure just within hours of her eventual discovery. It was a gruesome scene. Angie had been repeatedly sexually tortured, beaten, and starved for the last 9 days of her precious young life. What Angie was forced to endure is absolute horror and unimaginable agony at the hands of someone she trusted. The suffering must have been excruciating. Her clothes, winter coat, school books, and backpack were found thrown in a trash bag discarded yards from the tree she was tied to. She was left to freeze to death in inconceivable pain and terror. Dr. Mary Case was the chief medical examiner for St. Louis, St. Charles, Jefferson, and Franklin counties of Missouri, and she conducted Angie's autopsy. She said, quote, "Cases like this, there's no way you forget this. I've never forgotten Angie Housman," Dr. Case said. She had no clothing on her body. She had been tied to a tree with some clothing, and her hands were handcuffed. She had very wide duct tape covering her entire face with only her nose exposed, and under the duct tape there was a pair of panties over her mouth, but not stuck in the airway. Despite what she had been put through, Dr. Case said that it was the cold that killed Angie. Angie had cuts on both arms, one deep enough to cut a tendon and another deep, larger cut across her thigh. I'm sure it was horrifying. She'd been taken out, hooked up to a tree, and had no clothing on, and it was bitterly cold, and she can't see what's going on. Of course she was suffering, said Dr. Case. Over the years, many speculated as to who could be the killer, and there was even a deathbed confession that was refuted by law enforcement. Police speculated that Angie's killer could be a teenager, because approximately 100 feet away from where her body was found, there was a dead-end road that people called Lover's Lane. It was a popular hangout for teenagers in the 90s. The case remained cold for decades until November of 2018. A single fingerprint found on the duct tape covering Angie's face was sent to Quantico, Virginia for testing. Law enforcement is still awaiting the results. Angie's mother, Diane Bone, died November 11th of 2016. Without the opportunity to see justice for her precious daughter. Soon after, a Facebook group called Angie Housman's Angels for Justice was formed and is bringing new attention to the case and helping to keep the investigation alive. A tree and memorial plaque stand at Booter Elementary School in St. Anne in memory of Angie. Angie's Angels for Justice held a vigil at the school on Saturday, December 1st. The police had collected 150 pieces of evidence from the crime scene, and yet the killer still walks free. C.C. Moore, the Familia DNA expert, who is one of 3 experts in this field, has offered her assistance. This is the DNA testing that led to the capture of the Golden State Killer. In addition to Ms. Moore, there are other outside sources that have offered assistance, but without law enforcement agreeing to work with them, they cannot assist. And at this time, law enforcement has stated they cannot help. It's puzzling why law enforcement won't accept any outside help. It may be that it's because it's an active case, and with that fingerprint results yet to come back, they don't want to jeopardize the case. I'm just not certain. The St. Charles County Police Department will not comment on the case, calling it open and active and ongoing. Investigators encourage anyone with tips in this case to call the department at 636-949-3002. There is a $250,000 reward for the information leading to the arrest and conviction of her killer. If you know anything at all, please call with your information. This sweet, innocent, trusting little girl deserves justice and to rest in peace. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay safe.